Installation procedures for the HALDEX GeminiMDx high-capacity air drying system. The following HALDEX GeminiMDx installation procedures were completed using a New Flyer transit bus equipped with a Graham White air dryer. Depending on the specific New Flyer model and/or existing equipment, these procedures may need to be slightly modified for your specific installation. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact a HALDEX representative for assistance. The installation requires the following list of tools. Preparation. Pull the bus into an available shop bay. Turn off the main battery disconnect switch and lockout/tagout if required by your facility. Lift and secure the bus at an appropriate working height that allows the air dryer assembly to be easily accessed. Note: the air dryer assembly is located under the bus behind the roadside rear wheel well. Open all air tank drain valves and fully drain the air system as shown here. Note: drain valves are located under the bus in front of the roadside front wheel well and in front of the curbside rear wheel well. Graham White air dryer removal. Begin by disconnecting the green air delivery line at the bottom of the air dryer assembly and the green air supply line at the top of the air dryer assembly as shown here. Next, disconnect the 4-pin weather pack connector for the heater timer harness. Note: some cable ties may need to be cut to allow the harness to be disconnected. The air dryer assembly is held in place by a mounted bracket attached to the bus frame. On the sides of the bracket there are 2 fasteners on each side attaching the air dryer to the bracket. First, remove the rearward fasteners from both sides. Loosen the fasteners toward the front on both sides, but do not remove them to prevent the air dryer assembly from falling. Lift up and forward to remove the air dryer assembly from the mounting bracket as seen here. Lastly, remove the complete Graham White mounting bracket from the bus frame. Clean off any excess rust or debris from the frame as this area will be used to mount the GeminiMDx air dryer. Unpack HALDEX components. Unpack each component in your kit and ensure there are no missing or damaged components. Next, temporarily remove the mounting bracket from the air dryer assembly. You will require the air dryer mounting bracket, concept mounting bracket, and one of the purge tanks to locate and drill mounting holes in the following steps. Locate and drill mounting holes. Begin with the concept mounting bracket and one of the purge tanks as they need to be fit into place together on the roadside of the bus. Locate the vertical frame member adjacent to the airbag behind the roadside rear wheel well. Orient the concept mounting bracket along this vertical frame member and the bottom frame member as shown here. Ensure that the mounting holes are centered on each frame member. Before making the holes, hold a purge tank in place so that one of the purge tank mounting brackets sits within the notch of the concept mounting bracket as shown here. Now mark each concept bracket and purge tank mounting hole with a paint pen or marker. Check that each marked hole location is centered on the frame members. If any of them are off-center, place the bracket and purge tank and remark them. Note: it is important that each hole is properly centered in order to drill the 17/32 holes for each riv nut. Next, use a center punch at each marked location before drilling. It will be helpful to first drill each hole with a smaller 1/8 to 1/4 inch drill bit to begin with, and apply small amounts of cutting oil as needed. Finish each hole with a 17/32 drill bit, again using cutting oil as needed. Finally, use the riv nut tool to install 3/8 inch riv nuts into each hole. Ensure that each riv nut is properly seated and cannot spin before moving on to the next. Note: do not attach the concept mounting bracket and first purge tank to the frame members at this time. That will be completed later in this procedure after the concept are first attached to the bracket. Next, we will locate and drill the mounting holes for the GeminiMDx air dryer bracket. Place the air dryer mounting bracket against the large frame member where the previous air dryer was installed. Orient the bracket as shown here with the smaller mounting flange toward the bottom. Align this flange with the bottom edge of the bus frame member. Note: do not mount the air dryer too high or it will make servicing the desiccant canisters difficult. Align the air dryer mounting bracket as indicated in order to maintain enough clearance above the air dryer once installed. Also ensure that the new bracket holes do not intersect with the holes from the previous air dryer installation. Mark each hole location with a paint pen or marker. Then, use a center punch at each marked location before drilling. It may be helpful to first drill each hole with a smaller 1/8 to 1/4 inch drill bit to begin with, and apply small amounts of cutting oil as needed. Finish each hole with a 3/8 inch drill bit, again using cutting oil as needed. Note: riv nuts are not required for the air dryer mounting bracket. The air dryer installation will continue later in this procedure after reinstalling the bracket onto the air dryer assembly. Lastly, we will drill holes and install riv nuts for the second purge tank. Locate the vertical frame member in the space adjacent to the airbag behind the curbside rear wheel well. Orient the purge tank so that each mounting hole bracket is centered on a bus frame member. As with the first purge tank, mark each hole location and then use a center punch before drilling. Begin drilling with a smaller 1/8 to 1/4 inch drill bit, and then finish each hole with a 17/32 inch drill bit, using cutting oil as needed. Lastly, install 3/8 inch riv nuts into each hole using the riv nut tool. Compact riv nut tools such as this one may make installation easier. The purge tank will be installed later in this procedure after installing the necessary fittings. Bracket and fitting installation. Begin by reattaching the air dryer bracket to the air dryer assembly. Note the orientation of the bracket here, with the smaller flange toward the bottom of the assembly. Now reinstall all 6 bolts and lock washers. Torque each bolt to 35 to 50 pound-feet. Now turn the air dryer assembly over to begin fitting installation. The order of the fitting installation is not important. However, we will begin with the 1/4 inch swivel branch T-fitting. Note: the application of thread sealer is indicated for all of the fittings. However, the threads in your kit may come pre-applied with red sealant, in which case additional sealant is not necessary. Apply thread sealer to the pipe threads of the 1/4 inch male swivel branch T and install in the purge manifold port of the air dryer assembly. Hand tighten, then use a wrench to tighten an additional 1.5 to 2 turns. Next, apply thread sealer to the threads of the 1/4 inch 90-degree elbow fitting and install into the governor manifold port on the bottom of the air dryer assembly as seen here. Hand tighten, then use a wrench to tighten an additional 1.5 to 2 turns. Next, apply thread sealer to a 3/4 inch 90-degree elbow fitting and install in the wet tank supply line port of the air dryer assembly. Hand tighten, then use a wrench to tighten an additional 1.5 to 2 turns. Note: this 3/4 inch 90-degree elbow fitting should be aimed toward the wet tank supply line or approximately the 9 o'clock position when viewing from the front of the air dryer assembly. Now apply thread sealer to a 3/4 inch 90-degree elbow fitting and install in the inlet supply manifold port of the air dryer assembly. Hand tighten, then use a wrench to tighten an additional 1.5 to 2 turns. Note: this 3/4 inch 90-degree elbow fitting should be aimed toward the concept bracket installation. Next, we will install the fittings and bracket onto the concept. Apply thread sealer to the threads of a 3/4 inch reducer bushing and install in the inlet manifold port of the concept, located on the front side of the concept assembly. Hand tighten, and then use a wrench to tighten an additional 1.5 to 2 turns. Then apply thread sealer to the threads of a 3/4 inch 45-degree street elbow fitting and install into the reducer bushing as shown here. Hand tighten, then use a wrench to tighten an additional 1.5 to 2 turns. Note, the 3/4 inch 45-degree elbow fitting should be aimed toward the air compressor discharge tube location. Next, apply thread sealer to the threads of a 3/4 inch 90-degree elbow fitting and install in the outlet manifold port of the concept, located on the top of the concept assembly. Hand tighten, then use a wrench to tighten an additional 1.5 to 2 turns. Note, this 3/4 inch 90-degree fitting should be aimed toward the air dryer inlet manifold port. Now we will attach the concept assembly to the concept mounting bracket. Note the orientation of the bracket, as the purge tank mounting notch should be oriented to the right of the concept assembly as shown here. Install the concept onto the concept mounting bracket using the 2 U-bolts provided. Attach each U-bolt with a washer and nut. Torque the U-bolt nuts to 6 to 11 pound-feet in a cross pattern. Lastly, we will install the fittings onto the purge tanks. Start by applying thread sealer to a manual drain valve and installing in the bottom port. Hand tighten, then use a wrench to tighten an additional 1.5 to 2 turns. Next, apply thread sealer to a 3/8 inch 90-degree elbow fitting and install into the top port. Hand tighten, then use a wrench to tighten an additional 1.5 to 2 turns. Note, each 3/8 inch 90-degree fitting should be aimed in the direction the installed tubing will run toward the air dryer assembly. The direction will be different for each purge tank. Lastly, apply thread sealer to low-profile plugs and install in any mid-tank ports as shown here. Hand tighten each plug, then use an Allen wrench to tighten until fully seated. Repeat the above procedures for the second purge tank. The final fitting to be installed is located on the existing bus air governor. Locate the air governor and remove a single delivery port plug. Apply thread sealer to the threads of the 1/4 inch 90-degree elbow fitting and install into the air governor delivery port. Hand tighten, then use a wrench to tighten an additional 1 to 1.5 turns. Note, this 1/4 inch 90-degree fitting should be aimed in the direction the installed tubing will run toward the air dryer assembly. Component installation. Begin by installing the 2 purge tanks, making sure to install each according to the direction of the 3/8 inch 90-degree elbow fitting located on the top of each tank. Note, while plumbing installation is covered in the next section of this procedure, it may be easier to first attach the 3/8 inch black tubing to each purge tank before installing them. Install the purge tank using a 3/8 inch 16 by 1 inch bolt with never seize applied and washer at each riv nut location. Tighten each bolt with a wrench and then torque to 16 to 18 pound-feet. Repeat this procedure for the second purge tank. Next, install the concept assembly. Install a 3/8 inch 16 by 1 inch bolt with never seize applied and washer at each riv nut location through the concept mounting bracket as seen here. Tighten each bolt with a wrench and then torque to 16 to 18 pound-feet. Lastly, we will install the air dryer assembly. Begin by installing a 3/8 inch 16 by 1 1/4 inch bolt, washer, and nylock nut in both top holes with the bolt head and washer protruding from the forward side of the frame member where the air dryer will mount. Hand tighten the nylock nuts for now. Hang the air dryer assembly from the 2 bolts, ensuring that each washer remains on the outside of the air dryer bracket next to each bolt head as seen here. Next, install a 3/8 inch 16 by 1 1/4 inch bolt, washer, and nylock nut in both lower air dryer mounting bracket holes and through the frame member. Tighten all 4 bolts with a wrench and then torque to 45 to 50 pound-feet. Plumbing installation. Begin by connecting the concept outlet manifold port to the air dryer inlet manifold port. Install 3/4 inch nylon tubing, provided in kit, from the concept outlet manifold port and route over to the air dryer inlet manifold port as shown here. Trim the tubing as needed to fit without kinking. Hand tighten each fitting collar, then use a wrench to tighten an additional 2.5 to 3 turns. Next, install the air compressor discharge line into the concept inlet manifold port. Trim the tubing as needed to fit without kinking. Hand tighten the fitting collar, then use a wrench to tighten an additional 2.5 to 3 turns. Now install the wet tank supply line into the air dryer supply line manifold port. Trim the tubing as needed to fit without kinking. Hand tighten the fitting collar, then use a wrench to tighten an additional 2.5 to 3 turns. Now we will install the purge tank and the governor plumbing lines. If not already attached, install one end of the included 3/8 inch black tubing into the 90-degree upper fitting of the roadside purge tank. Route the tubing over the top of the concept and to the swivel branch T-fitting on the air dryer assembly. Note, when routing the purge tank and governor lines, make sure they cannot contact the airbags, drive shaft, or any other areas that may abrade the lines over time. Trim the roadside purge tank line using a dedicated airline cutting tool to ensure a clean 90-degree cut. Then push the line into the push-to-connect fitting until it is fully seated. As the curbside purge tank and air governor are usually located close to each other, route each of these lines in tandem toward the air dryer assembly. If not already attached, install one end of the included 3/8 inch black tubing into the 90-degree upper fitting of the curbside purge tank. Route the tubing over the drive shaft, trying to follow any existing lines, and to the swivel branch T-fitting on the air dryer assembly. Trim the curbside purge tank line using a dedicated airline cutting tool to ensure a clean 90-degree cut. Then push the line into the push-to-connect fitting until it is fully seated. Next, install the 1/4 inch black tubing into the 90-degree fitting of the air governor delivery port. Route the tubing alongside the curbside purge tank tubing and to the 90-degree governor air manifold port on the bottom of the air dryer assembly. Trim the governor airline using a dedicated airline cutting tool to ensure a clean 90-degree cut. Then push the line into the push-to-connect fitting until it is fully seated. Finally, secure all of the installed 3/8 inch and 1/4 inch air lines with zip ties. Electrical harness installation. Begin by locating the air dryer to concept ADV harness included in your kit. Apply dielectric grease to each connection point. Then connect the ADV harness to each air dryer heater as seen here. Next, connect the opposite ends to each concept automatic drain valve. Lastly, connect the 4-tower weather pack to the existing gram white OEM connector as shown here. Now secure all of the electrical lines with zip ties, ensuring they are not hanging down below the bus frame. Next, complete the interior electrical connections as follows. Interior electrical installation. relay socket, mounting base. Begin by opening the rear rack panel. Locate two unused 1024 threaded holes on the passenger side of the rear rack panel. One unused threaded hole will be used to mount the relay socket mounting base, or the relay mounting tab, depending on which style you use, to the rear rack panel. The second threaded hole will be used to mount the inline fuse holder required later in this procedure. Using a 1/2 inch long 1024 machine screw, mount the relay socket mounting base to the panel. Interior electrical installation, wiring the shunt side of the relay. Remove pin 16 from connector XRR53. Note: be sure to reference your specific New Flyer wiring schematic to confirm that pin 16 is in fact for the wire that terminates at pin location D of the 4-pin weather pack connector. Cut the zip ties to free enough wire to both remove the pin and reach the relay socket. Leave roughly 3 inches of extra wire for routing. Next, cut the pin off the end of the wire and replace it with a connector for the relay socket. Install into the relay socket designated for pin 30. Cut a 12-inch length of wire. Attach one end to the relay socket connector. Install into the relay socket slot designated for pin 87. On the opposite end, install a male Deutsch style pin. Seal and install back into pin 16 of the XRR53-16 connector. Interior electrical installation, relay signal ground. Cut a 16-inch length of black wire. On one end, attach a connector for the relay socket. Install into the relay socket designated for pin 85. On the opposite end, install a number 10 ring terminal. Route the wire to the ground bar located above the XRR53 connector and secure the ring terminal under one of the ground bar screws. Interior electrical installation, relay signal source. Next, an inline fuse holder will be used to protect the signal circuit. Cut an 18-inch length of red wire. Attach one end to one of the wires from the inline fuse holder. Use a connector with, or add heat shrink tubing to protect the connection. On the opposite end, attach a female Deutsch pin compatible with connector XBB-DS3. Now locate connector XBB-DS3 in the rear rack area. Disconnect the connector and remove the blank plug from pin location number 6. Install the female Deutsch pin into cavity number 6 of the XBB-DS3 connector. Route and secure the wire. Next, attach a connector for the relay socket to the other wire from the inline fuse holder. Install into the relay socket designated for pin 86. Mount the inline fuse holder assembly next to the relay socket using an existing threaded hole and a 1/2 inch long 1024 machine screw. Install a 3-amp fuse into the fuse holder. Now, secure the fuse holder into the mounting socket and install the relay into the mounting base. Lastly, perform all necessary function checks. This completes the electrical installation. Testing and visual checks. First, do a final inspection to ensure all cables, wiring harnesses, and hoses are secured and routed properly, preventing chafing and other damage. Now turn the bus ignition on, but do not start the bus at this time. Wait approximately 10 minutes and verify the operation of the heaters at both ADVs on the concept and the bottom portion of the air dryer. Both should be warmed to the touch. Note: the dual heaters in the air dryer only activate when the ambient temperature is below 45 degrees Fahrenheit. If the temperature during the installation is above 45 degrees Fahrenheit, the dryer heaters will not turn on. The Concept ADVs, however, should be warm to the touch as they will be energized while the brake lights are on. Now start the engine. Allow system air pressure to build up to governor cutout pressure, approximately 125 psi. Verify the air dryer performs a purge cycle. Air should expel from the bottom of the air dryer assembly once system pressure has been reached. Next, spray all pneumatic connection points with a soapy water solution. Verify there are no air leaks present. Actuate the service brakes several times, dropping the air pressure below governor cut-in range. Allow the pressure to build up to governor cut-out pressure and verify the air dryer performs a purge cycle. Check the manual operation of the ADVs on the Concept by pressing the red button on the bottom of each. Air should expel from the bottom of the valve. Note: air will only expel if the coil is not energized and the compressor is pumping air into the system. Ensure that the brake lights are not on and the compressor is building air into the system when performing this test. Have an assistant release the parking brake and make service brake applications. Ensure that you hear an audible click from both ADVs and a small puff of air is expelled out the bottom of each. Lastly, perform a road test if required by your facility procedures. This completes the installation of the HALDEX GeminiMDx system. We would like to extend a special thank you to the Greater Bridgeport Transit Authority for the use of their facility and skilled technicians in completing this video.